Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the northeast corner of beautiful South Africa. This is a breeding herd of elephants. They've just had a mud bath. You are on a live sunset safari. My name is James Hendry, and this is Safari Live.
Ready. Standing by.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Welcome to the magnificent Djuma and Arathusa game reserves here in the famous Sabi Sands. It's part of the Greater Kruger National Park in northeastern South Africa, more than twice the size of Yellowstone National Park, and is home to all of Africa's iconic animals. This is Safari Live, and you've just gotten on the biggest safari vehicle on the planet. My name's Hayden Turner. I've got 2 vehicles out, a bushwalk, a drone in the sky, and trackers all over the property. It's absolutely fantastic day. It's boiling hot here. Can't wait to have you on board. You can interact with us through Twitter, #Safari Live, where we answer your questions straight down the barrel to wherever you are, and you're on our vehicle together with us. I'm going to cross over to Scotty on bushwalk. We've got something very exciting.
Welcome to the bushwalk, everyone. We are amongst a herd of elephants and we are being very cautious. It's a dangerous operation, getting up close with these giants. It's a breeding herd with lots of mothers and youngsters, all different shapes and sizes. I think I've also seen 1 or 2 big bulls. Thankfully, the wind is blowing towards us. And as long as we keep quiet and in the shade here, they shouldn't detect us. And then should just continue feeding peacefully as they are now. They've got no idea we're here, even though we're only about 40 meters away from them. They don't have the bestest of eyesight, elephants, but their sense of smell is incredible. Thankfully, I've got a little ash bag filled with campfire ash in this little sock, and as you can see, it's blowing towards us. So we've got nothing to worry about with the wind, which is good news. And don't worry, we know what we're doing. If anything does happen though, we need to stand our ground. That's very important, so don't expect for us to all start running off if something does happen. And we always do need to be prepared for the worst case scenario. Now this is a different herd of elephant to the one you were lucky enough to start off seeing with James at the waterhole. We're not far from that waterhole, but this is a separate herd, and wonderful that a lot more elephants are moving through Djuma again. They are not animals of territory, and these animals can move hundreds and hundreds of miles from here at Djuma up into surrounding countries, Mozambique and Zimbabwe. And thankfully for now, they're visiting us here, so lots of elephants around, and we're going to try and reposition and get you some better views of them. Now we do have to be cautious because Jean-Andre, who's on camera this afternoon, has got a big antenna sticking out of a backpack, so it's not as easy for him to move through the bush as it is for me. But we've got a few more views over here. Take a look here. And my heart is racing. Even though there's a healthy distance between us, we do need to just make sure we don't put any pressure on these animals. That's the last thing we want to do. And effectively what we are trying to do is view these animals and move out without them having any idea that we're here. Sometimes, of course, Mother Nature can keep you on your toes and the wind direction can change, giving the elephants an idea of where you are. But for now, she's looking after us. I think we're going to be able to get some great views if we just creep up to this little gap here. And we're going to wait where we are here. We're going to be able to stay with this herd, but we need to take you back to James's herd because they're about to head off into some tricky terrain and he wants to give you one last glimpse of them. We'll be waiting here with this herd when you guys get back.
Elephants everywhere, everybody. Wonderful stuff. These guys are heading to the northern side of our reserve, and I'll just try and keep up with them. And there's some lovely little ones in there. Just remember, we love to hear from you. Hashtag Safari Live if you want to ask us any questions about the animals that we see, or about the land that we're on, or this magnificent country that we're very privileged to call home. There we go. We'll just get a last view of them here. There they go. And what they're doing, I think, they've had their mud bath, and they're probably now heading off north to find some water. There are some larger water holes to the north of this road, which is a boundary we can't cross, but of course we're in 8 million acres of contiguous wildlife land, part of which, of course, is the iconic Kruger National Park. And the elephants can come and go anywhere they please. They collared a cow elephant here in the Sabi Sands a little while back, and found that she walked up to 80 kilometers away from the Sabi Sands, so the elephants can go where they like. 80 kilometers is about 50 miles. So they go long distances in search of water and the right food for them to eat. So that is a beautiful breeding herd of elephants, and what a privilege it was to start the drive with them having a little mud bath in some of the last remaining water in what has been a very dry season. So amazing bottoms, an iconic kind of image of Africa. They're the elephant bottom disappearing, and it's just, we spend a lot of time around elephants here, and they are becoming more and more confiding, which means they're starting to trust us more and more. And the more sensitive we are with them, the more they tend to trust us. And because of that, while Scott, who you know is on foot, is being very careful around the elephants and probably trying to make sure that they don't know he's there, even if they were to scent him or smell him, or maybe the wind will change, or maybe he'll stand on a twig or something like that. Now, despite the care that he's taking, because of the relationship that we've been building over the last years, the elephants here are really quite relaxed about us, which is wonderful. And that's not to say we don't need to be very respectful all the time, which we are. Let's go back to Scott. He's still got his elephants. I'll see what else I can find around here. See you just now.
So the herd is continuing to move along. They're moving in an easterly direction, and we're going to hopefully be able to stay with them. We just need to reposition, and again, we want to be very cautious and make sure we don't disturb them. As James was saying, the elephants in the Sabi Sands are habituated. They know the people here come in peace. We don't want to hurt them or harm them, and they've worked that out over many years of coming to visit us here. But what I must say is that their response to people in vehicles is very different to that of people on foot. And it's the same for all of the animals of the Sabi Sands. The lion, the leopard, the buffalo. They will tolerate us viewing them in the vehicles, but on foot we have to be very, very cautious and respectful of them. There's a nice big broken down marula tree up ahead of us. It was probably actually broken down by elephants, and that's what we're going to use as our next little bit of cover. So follow me, let's try and get to this broken marula tree and enjoy a few more views. We might not even have to get there. No, let's go a little bit further. We are so close to them now, and they've got no idea that we're here. How cool is this? So awesome to be able to view animals from ground level like this. Is an absolute treat. And especially, like I say, when they are so peaceful. At the moment, they are probably only about 30 meters away from us. Some big mothers, their calves of various ages. Haven't seen any tiny calves. Something that you guys can look out for is, if you see a calf that could walk underneath its mother, it's usually under a year of age. So that's a good kind of gauge to use to age elephants. Nothing's for certain or guaranteed out here in nature. So that's also something very important to remember when trying to understand animals or age animals. Just like us as humans, there's slight variances, and you could line up 10 people and guess a lot of their ages wrong, even though they are our own species. So I'm not too sure exactly. Idea. Great stuff. Now this herd is going to be being led by a matriarch at the moment, an old big female. She makes the decisions as to what the herd's going to be doing. But I do think I saw 1 or 2 big bulls possibly trailing this herd. There may be some mating opportunities. And that's the only time that elephant bulls will join the herd, when there are opportunities to mate. So it's something important to remember with the elephants. There aren't always bulls associated with the herds. And especially when you're following them on foot like we are, we could be keeping a close eye on the ladies and all the kids, but we could get ambushed by some big males who are lurking further behind. So we've made sure that's not happening. Most of the herd has moved past now, and we'll take a few more minutes to loop ahead of them safely. So let's back up the way we came. Always a good option when walking through the bush. If you're not sure what your next move should be, go backwards. It's usually your safest bet. We're just going to show you some very pretty little flowers. I'm not too sure exactly what they are, but not only about the big things. When you're walking through the African bush, there's some extract that's really small. And if you just get involved and take it around, you get to see so many interesting things like these bright yellow flowers. Now, we're going to send you from these pretty flowers to some big old Cape buffalo with Peter. Enjoy.
Well, as always, welcome here in a nice hot afternoon. Actually, we had some cool weather the last few days, but this afternoon we're looking at about 90 degrees Fahrenheit, give or take, and a beautiful afternoon. And just a reminder again, we are in not only Africa, but we are in southern Africa here at Djuma and Arathusa Game Reserves and Sabi Sands, which is part of the Greater Kruger National Park, as Hayden has mentioned a few times. Twice the size of Yellowstone, bigger than some small countries. Beautiful wildlife place. And we are looking at something people often call water buffalo, but they're actually African buffalo, or Cape buffalo specifically. And they're just having a lazy afternoon, enjoying the waterhole there, cooling themselves down. And we are going to do the same. We're going to have a fantastic afternoon, not necessarily cool down in the waterhole when I say do the same, but we're going to enjoy the afternoon as well. My name is Peter Pretorius, and as always, welcome you on Safari Live, and welcome in South Africa. Most importantly, welcome in the bush. This is a huge pleasure to be on safari with you. And we've got buffalo, we've got fantastic elephant, as you've seen, with James and with Scott. And this morning we had, well, we almost had leopard, but we couldn't find them. They were too tricky, and subsequently they've moved into another area that we can't follow. So we are going to be around this afternoon, sort of this general area, as well as, well, I'm hoping that we can find Karula perhaps. She's been around now. Karula, for many of you that word might even make sense. Karula means peace or peaceful, and that's the name of a leopard female that we see very often here. She's been called the Queen of Djuma many times, and we haven't seen her in the last few days, or the last probably 4 or 5 days, so it's about time that we find her again. I'm hoping it's going to be the case. Otherwise, beautiful views to enjoy. We have eyes in the sky, as you can see, and I'm going to just move a little bit. I want to show you just up behind us here. There you can see us just coming out of the shade. We've been sitting here in the shadows of a bush because it's been so hot. I'm going to show you a couple of these buffalo up close. That mud bathing and the wallowing that they are doing, it's got various benefits for them. It plays a big role in controlling parasites, but also it cools them down, plain and simple. It's hot, you go lie in water and mud, you're going to feel cooler afterwards. Let's have a look at these guys in front of us. That's the same two that you could see now from the drone. Probably give you another view just now. And they are walking across the sort of cracked and baked mud, if you want, from the waterhole. This would be Gari waterhole where it's full of water. At the moment, I guess it would just be Gari dust hole or dust bath. But we are in summer now, the beginning of the rain season, and as soon as the heavy rains come, these kind of waterholes like this one would actually be filled with water. You'll have hippos in here, crocodiles sometimes. But in the meantime, good place to dust bath. And these guys on the left-hand side here, I'm going to show you there, 3 buffalo just still in the water. In the background there, just for interest's sake, beautiful Voyatella Lodge. By the way, means to come back or come back many times. And certainly as far as this warthol goes, these buffalo have been here and will be here many times in the future. It's a perfect place for them to keep cool. A couple of oxpeckers flying around on them. Those birds you can see there just taking off from the buffalo's head. Hello, Drew. Just watch where I'm turning here. I think I'll show you up ahead. There was some wildebeest and impala, some general game as well. Drew, you were just asking, have we noticed any predators following these buffalo? No, we have not yet. These Duggar boys, as we call them, or bachelor groups, little male groups, they don't, they don't attract as much attention as the big herds do. The really big herds, especially now in summertime, you can have herds of 2, 3, 4, 500 buffalo, and they have their young throughout the year, but the majority are born in summer. So it's a great opportunity for lions to hunt in those big herds. So the big herds of buffalo very often have lion prides, not following them every day, but following them very often. Otherwise, that's the only thing you can really take buffalo. They're too big for the other predators. However, speaking of predators and speaking of having young ones, on the left-hand side you can see two. Let me retry that again. On the left-hand side, you can see two species. Impalas down to the right, and blue wildebeest or gnu up to the left. Drew, and thanks for saying hello, guys. Remember, wherever you are in the world, you're on the same safari with us. You're welcome to ask questions. Hashtag Safari Live, the Twitter feed will reach us. And we can't get to all the questions, but we will get to some of them. Drew, you were asked a question out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I like the Carolinas. I spent quite a bit of time in South Carolina in the past. I played tennis there way back when. Hilton Head Island, so I have an idea of where you are, and we showed you earlier where we are. Southern Africa, geographically far away, but in the experience we are going to have the same beautiful safari experience this afternoon. To come back to the question, and in terms of animals following animals to hunt, hello Mia, question out of Michigan. You were just wondering if those buffalo we saw just back there are part of the Djuma herd. Mia, buffalo actually have got very large, what's called home ranges. I'm just going to go a little bit forward, just while we finish your question. Maybe we can show you a couple of the impala females up ahead. Buffalo work with what's called home ranges. Now, you get territories, which would be like lions. They've got a specific territory and they dominate that area against other lions. But home ranges, I'm just checking the tracks here, hyena tracks from last night, impala tracks, obviously, yeah, they are. Look at this female. She's going to have a lamb, if not today, tomorrow maybe. Look at how big her belly is. Oh, there she goes. So buffalo have got home ranges. They move through vast areas, and we would see different herds over a year's period of, sort of, let's say over a year or so. We will see 2 or 3 or 4 different herds coming through this area. So they're not resident as such, but they have their home ranges that they stay in. Yeah, I'm sure that answered your question. We're going to go on a little bit. We're very close to the safari tent, but you're going to get there ahead of us. And Hayden's got some femur stories to tell you, I think.
Whew, it's boiling out there, and it's boiling in here too, guys. I just wanted to give you a quick look at one of these fantastic things. We find these things all over the place, all over the reserves all the time, and we bring them in and we have a little bit of an investigation. This here, I'm going to have to stand up for this. You ready? This here is an elephant femur. Right, now if I was to put it next to me, oh, hang on, let me just put it up there for a second. The femur is that bone here, that large thigh bone here in the hind bone on leg on elephants. Okay, so it's a massive, massive bone. It's about 10 times as long as a domestic dog. Let's have a little measure, shall we? Tape measure out. We like to measure things around here. Okay. 110 centimeters. 100. Now that's about 10 times the length of a domestic dog's, and about 20 times as thick. That's an incredible. Well, and we find, as I said, we find these things all over the place, all the time. It just gives you a bit of a proportion, or a bit of a, when you stand up, that's that's my femur, and when you stand up next to it, it gives you a bit of a proportional look at how big the elephant is and how small we are. Just a little bit of interesting stuff on the elephant femur, and we find them all over the place. Okay, let's cross back to Scotty on bushwalk. We'll see you just now.
This is so awesome. Still with this elephant herd, and they still have no idea we're here. We're going to have to reposition though. Even though you're getting a few glimpses of them, we need to try and loop ahead of them again. So let's go. Follow me. I hope you're enjoying your live safari so far. Isn't it remarkable that you can be sitting so far away but enjoying a live safari with us, experiencing and creating all these memories. Hello Dylan, good to have you on the safari with us. And Dylan would like to know, what is the biggest elephant I've ever seen? And Dylan, I've been incredibly lucky. I've once seen an elephant with tusks so long that they actually touched the ground if he walked with his head low. And it's not actually uncommon for big elephant tuskers to snap off their tusks because they get too long. Sadly though, we don't see too many of those anymore, the big tuskers, but there are still a few around, and who knows, maybe this afternoon one will come and visit us here. But they're massive animals, Dylan, 6 tons, remarkably big, and when viewing them on foot, they certainly command a lot of respect. The Ellies are just up ahead of us now. We're getting a bit closer. Hello to Marianne in Arkansas, and thanks so much to everyone who's sending through questions. If you're feeling left out, it's very easy. All you have to do is hashtag Safari Live on Twitter to chat with us. And Marianne in Arkansas is wondering whether elephants have got good color vision or night vision. I did mention earlier that their vision isn't good, but they'll see more color notes than black and white. It's usually the predators or the nocturnal animals, Marianne, that see in less shades of color, and that's a sacrifice that they've paid for having good night vision. So elephants will see in a bit of color, but their eyesight is not great. I'm hoping we're going to be able to get you one last view of this herd of elephants, but it's an animal that you can't take any chances with. They seem to have picked up the speed ever so slightly. Oh, I nearly tripped there. I'm thinking of just stopping here and letting Jean-Andre show you these Ellies as they melt off into the vegetation. And we've had such a wonderful sighting of them that I think we're going to leave them now, and we're going to send you guys off for a quick break, but don't worry, you'll be back on safari shortly. Okay. Whew, isn't this exciting, guys? So we've just put our TV viewers into a short break. It's not easy keeping up with all the safari action, so we thought we'd wean the TV viewers into it and give them a short breather. For the internet viewers, the seasoned veterans, you guys can continue on the action now. And we've got incredibly lucky. The wind is still in our favor, as you can see. So, and there's a little termite mound here, which is going to be the perfect cover for us to creep up quite quickly. This is going to be awesome. We needed one of these 10 minutes ago, but they've only been tiny ones. It's probably about 15 meters away right here, the closest one. Chandre's doing a great job hiking up here with his backpack on. There we go. Beautiful views again. Oh, my heart is racing. The last thing I'd want to happen now in terms of bad luck is for the wind to change, because we've obviously got no power over that. And it actually happened this morning when I was on bushwalk. Thankfully the elephants decided to leave the scene as opposed to investigate further. Wonderful. Well, also wonderful that we've ended up on this termite mound, because they are such important structures, not only for humans when you're trying to view elephants on foot, but for so many other animals like the hyena, who are currently denning here on Djuma in a termite mound. And we're going to take a breather here, catch our breath, probably leave these ellies to their own devices. We have had such great views and the wind is beginning to change a little bit. Let me just show you. You can see now it's kind of swirling in all directions. So it'll be a good time now to leave them and send you back to Peter for an update.
Well guys, welcome from the walk, and we're just driving around in this general area, as I said, sort of around Boitela Lodge. This is another little waterhole, quite a popular waterhole to drink from, especially because the water is so nice and fresh normally. And I'm just going to sit here for a little bit, because at the moment not everyone is on the vehicle. Have a quick look at these buffalo. Quite a beautiful bull on the right hand side. Stunning male. That's really a spectacular set of horns on him. All the typical sounds of summer as well. If you just listen carefully, it'll be about a minute or so before everyone else gets back on. But just a nice listen. You can hear the birds calling, turtle doves. Yeah, robin down in the riverbed. Look at this guy. Right, guys, everyone will jump on back soon. And I can hear the drone, so this is going to be nice to look at. Well, we've come across from the walk back to the game drive this side, and we've moved to different buffalo from earlier. We are, as I mentioned, just in the vicinity of Djuma Lodge, and came across these two bulls. It's another little waterhole here. But quick thing here, we had a question from Hannah actually asking, how do you tell a male buffalo? Now, the one we're looking at here is a perfect example of a healthy bull buffalo. He'd be a little bit past his physical prime now in terms of age, but you look at his horns, to come back to your question, one of the easiest way to tell buffalo whether it's male or female is to look at the horns. Heavy horns, those shields on the front of the head, on top of the head. It always reminds me, Hannah, of you know, those judges in the old days, and actually many courts still, the judges have those wigs on. Look at that set of horns, beautiful. That would be almost as wide as my arm span, horn to horn, a little bit, probably about 4 foot side to side. Beautiful, sort of above average set of horns on that guy. Definitely a bull from the weight and the heaviness of them. And some bulls have got bigger horns than other bulls. Look at this guy. He's got only half a horn on this side. That would have been broken off more than likely in a fight with another bull during mating times. If he turns his head this way, which he might not, he looks half asleep. The other side actually does have a horn. And interesting enough, Hannah, also a very important part of not only telling whether it's male or female, but those horns play a huge role in defending themselves. That guy doesn't want to turn his head now, so let's look at this other guy again. Also, just to keep in mind, this is a small waterhole. We're very close to the lodges here still, so this is a pan that in the dry season, like now when it's not rained yet, water gets pumped in there. Look at this guy's horns. If you look at, that's the bosses I was talking about. So these big shields on the forehead, that's the bosses. With the females, it wouldn't be nearly as heavy or as big. But then talking about the weapons or the sort of fighting aspect of the horns, look at those tips. Very, very sharp horns, and that's what they would use to chase away lions and things like that. Speaking of big things, great view of elephants. Enjoy it. We'll see you back just now.
Well, we couldn't have asked for this to finish off any better. They've come into the small open clearing, allowing us for some great views of all the different herd members. And we're going to leave them as they cross off into this thick bush, but couldn't resist calling you back to get an idea of how many elephants we've actually been following through the bush on foot for the last 10 or 15 minutes. I haven't counted, but maybe you can count along with me. There's all sorts, and I'm not sure exactly where Jean-Andre is filming, but there's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, at least 14 or 15 I'm seeing. But it is tricky in this thick bush. Interestingly, the female who's closest to me now in the shade has got a bit of a deformed tusk. Her right tusk isn't growing as it should be, but her left tusk is looking good. Can you believe how close they are to us, and I've got no idea we hear the wind? It's still in our favor. As you can see, it's blowing back in a southerly direction. They're moving off in an easterly direction. And I just love the way, if you treat animals with the right respect, you can move alongside them. And hello to Alfred. He would like to know, is there a set leader to this herd? And Alfred, I touched on it a little bit earlier, but probably not in enough depth, that there's a female that will be in charge of this herd called the matriarch. And she'll be one of the biggest, oldest females, the wisest and most experienced of the bunch. But hard to tell which one she is. She'll probably be in front, leading them at the moment. But I can't be certain which one she is. Like I said a bit earlier, because these herds are not territorial and they move freely. I just got concerned that the one female may have seen me there, but she didn't, which is good. But they move freely through the whole of the Greater Kruger National Park. Millions of hectares to roam. And because they've got all this space to move through without us following them, it's hard to keep track of exactly who's who. Now, I can't move from where I am here, but I want to maybe ask Jean-Andre to just pan across and give you some last views of these elephants, and I'll try and reposition. What I'm going to try and do while I am repositioned is stay in the shade. It's a good trick to use when moving through the bush, following animals. If you're in the shade, they've got less chance of seeing you than if you move through the sunshine. Okay, I'm back in a good spot now, and just in time to answer Francesco's question. And she would like to know, how often do we see elephant when we're on safari? Is it a daily thing? It's a good question, Francesco. It really does depend on luck. Because I said earlier they are not territorial, they are sometimes just many hundreds of kilometers away, and there are not many around. So we can go for periods of a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, where we may only see a handful of elephants. And then all of a sudden, when the food is right and when they understand why they should come back here, usually food related, they come back in their herds. Even in the last week or so, we've noticed a massive increase in elephant numbers just in time, so you guys get to see them, which is awesome. This is an interesting question from Tommy. If hippos can kill elephants. And yes, I guess a fully grown hippo fairly easily kill a young elephant, but an adult hippo with an adult elephant, I'll put the elephants ahead because the elephants are much, much larger. with them for too much longer. But enough time to answer one more question from Ethan here. To put it in perspective, faster than the fastest human on earth. So we are not going to outrun them, and that's why I said earlier, if these wild animals in Africa charge you, or anywhere really where you may be in the world, it's usually best to stand your ground, make them feel that they can probably move at around 30 miles an hour. Awesome stuff. We are going to send you across to Pete, who's found some beautiful, beautiful antelope he'd like to show you.
Big view of those elephants. Very exciting being on foot as well. This is a Nyala. It's not only one of the most beautiful antelope, but also for me, it has one of the most beautiful names. A Nyala. N-Y-A-L-A, if you wanted to write that down. Thick bush here, Nyala love this sort of dense habitat. We're on one of these little riverine areas, and just bumped into these three Nyala. Big ears. I can imagine if you live in this kind of habitat, thick bush, lots of leaves and twigs and quite a lush area, look at that. Then obviously eyesight is still important. These guys can see as well as any antelope. But hearing is super, super important. Because you're in such thick bush, often you're going to first figure out that there's something around by hearing a twig snap or a blade of grass breaking or something like that. That's what will often be your first warning call. So these guys are very alert. And the reason we actually came in here, you'll see just now when we drive along, this is quite a pretty area, and it's very lush, as we can obviously see. And I came in here just because we haven't seen any tracks of Karula now for a while. Karula is this leopard that I've mentioned a few times. And I'm hoping that we might find it today. If not today, I'm sure by tomorrow. It's just sort of time again, you know, because we haven't seen her for a while. So I wanted to come in here. This is one of the areas that she likes to hang out in. And unless you come in here, you won't know about it. So up to these Nyalas, they would now also be on the sentry team. If they see the leopard, they will start calling. If these guys see a leopard, they'll make a quick, loud alarm call. And quite thick in here. Just a quick question there from Vicky from Chicago. Good afternoon. You guys are getting into nice cold time. I'll never forget Chicago. I was there over Christmas. One of the most beautiful lighting scenes I've ever seen in a city. We're going to leave these Nyala and let them do their thing. But quickly, Vicky, you were asking how many animals have we seen give birth? I wasn't quite sure if you mean me personally or us here at Wild Earth, but let me tell you the story from last year, Big Cat Week as well. We had an amazing, amazing sighting of wildebeest being born, but we'll tell you about that later maybe again. In the meantime, enjoy Buffelshoek Dam. I think there's some stork action. Enjoy it.
So everybody, from Nyala to marabou storks, quite possibly the ugliest bird ever created or evolved, depending on your persuasion, of course. This is the scavenging stork, and the most interesting thing about the stork is that it is most closely related to New World vultures. Now, a New World vulture is a vulture that occurs in the Americas, and these ones are much more closely related to our vultures, at least to your vultures in the New World, than they are to ours. And we know that because they find their prey using smell rather than sight, just like the New World vultures, like the condors and other related birds like that. So that's what we've got there, marabou storks eating tilapia. Now, I do have a tilapia that I'm going to show you. I'm just going to quickly show you a few more bird species that we have here. A juvenile fish eagle, very closely related, interestingly, to the American bald eagle. That's the bird on the right-hand side of your screen. And then on the left-hand side, you've got two woolly-necked storks. And all of these birds are sitting around here trying to... Not a lot of water around, and these last remaining water holes are drying out, and we're hoping for some rain to come very soon. Now, I'm going to go and fetch you a tilapia. Susie, crocodiles like permanent water, like a river. They prefer sort of rivers, and so I think they're probably in this around the Sand River, about 7 kilometers to the south of us, 5 miles, 4.5 miles to the south of us. That's where you'll find the crocodiles, and in some of the larger, more permanent dams. There has been a crocodile seen here once or twice when it was very full, And so I found it on the side of the bank while I was walking past looking for tracks. Eating, and the hammerkorps, lots and lots of birds enjoying these little tilapia. This guy has got a severe case of rigor mortis, and they're actually pretty tasty fish for humans to eat too. I'm not going to eat this particular one. He's going to be a feast for some ants, something like that. Yeah. Now, Wayne in Florida, you want to know a little bit about the rainy season and when the rain is. We get rain normally starting sort of around the middle of November, Wayne, and it's a little bit then, and then into January and February we'll get our main rain season for the animals to survive. Let's head across to Hayden. He's going to show you a little bit about surviving in the bush well, remaining clean and sparkly in the bush. See you just now.
Well, folks, there's loads and loads of tiny little things out there, just like James was showing you there. Small things matter as well. That all fits into the ecosystem. Something really interesting I wanted to show you here. This is called devil's thorn, or it's also known as sheep's thorn, or boot protector is another name for it. And this little thorn here has a very, very interesting modification on it. These two little spikes sticking out of it there. I'm going to put it under the microscope for you to give you a better look. It's really hard to see in my hands. Let's just cross to the microscope and I can show you properly. Just got to get it in the shot for you. And you can see those two little thorns. There's one, it's a side view at the moment I've got for you. So there's a little thorn sticking out. And when that seed actually comes to become fruit, it is green in colour and it's quite soft, and then it starts to ripen and harden and turns brown. Now what the modification is those little thorns, I'll just turn it up that way for you now to see if you can. I don't know if it's really good in that light. I've got sun bursting through the tent at the moment. What happens is an animal like particularly an ungulate, a hoofed animal, will come past and tread on that, and those two little spikes will go into the fleshy part of the elephant's foot or the hoof on maybe a zebra or a kudu, and it will get transported, and it's a fantastic way of seed dispersal. Really, really fantastic way of seed dispersal, but it's got many other uses as well. Come and have a look at this. So traditional uses of plants are quite big in this part of the world, and this particular one is also known to be able to make a soap from it. So have a look at this. I'll just strip a bit of this off. We'll come out. I've got a little bit of water here, and we put this in here. I'm going to get a bit more. We put it into our hand, get a bit more water, and as I start to, you can start to hear that. I'll put it close to my microphone, and you can hear that. It's starting to sound like when you wash your hands with soap. And have a look at it. It's got a sticky, mucusy type of a feel to it. It can be used for soap. It can be used for shampoo. It also, you can see how sticky and mucusy that is right there. Very mucusy sort of lubricant actually. And I've been with bushmen in the Kalahari, and they've shown me this bush, and they actually said when they're hunting they would use this and they would put it between their legs and so they didn't get chafing between their legs on a long distance hunt, on a hunt where they actually run down an animal over 24 hours, and they would use that, rubbing it in between their legs to stop chafing. So it can be also used for some other different things like relieving swelling, boils and ulcers, and it's just got some very, very interesting things to it. But this is the most common thing that it's used for, making a bit of a soap or a lubricant. So interesting stuff. But Steph told me something really nice that he does when he uses it. He puts a little bit of wild basil with it just for a bit of perfume. So you could mix that with it and have a great little soapy bath with that. So it's called devil's thorn, or sheep's thorn also, or boot protector is another funny name for it, but devil's thorn, and it all comes from that tiny little thorn there that we talked about just then. So fantastic, lots of traditional and medicinal uses of plants, and we're going to touch on those throughout today's show. All right, who have we got next? I'm just trying to see through the sunshine. I've got to think, who is that? Is that Peter or James? That's James. He looks like he's reversing onto some tracks or something, so we'll cross over to him and see what he gets up to.
Right, we've left the dam and we're heading down the road here, just trying to pick up a couple of tracks on the way. Now, There's been some interesting lion developments in the area of late, and I'm going to try my new driving style now. It's a personal one I've tried. It's extremely dangerous. Of course, it's called extreme safari driving. And while I'm doing it, I'm going to tell you about the lions. It's actually not dangerous at all. It's just easier for me to look you in the eye. The lions here are in a state of turmoil. 5 marauding male lions called the Birmingham Boys have come in from the north into the south here. There were 2 big adult male lions, and they were looking after the area, and they were then chased out by these males. And basically the pride structure, or the coalition and social structure of lions, dictates that there'll be males in an area, and they will dominate over a number of pride territories. The males are not part of the pride, and those 2 Matimba boys looked after the Styx pride to the south and the Nkuhuma pride here. They formed the bulk of our lion viewing. And the Nkuhuma pride then scattered when these new males came in. The 2 other males disappeared off to the south, and so there's this enormous sort of sense of turmoil around the lions at the moment. It's very exciting. It's a wonderful time to be here, and we hope to show you some of those big cats during this big cat week. The leopards, slightly more stable. There are other major big cat, of course. And Emery, you want to know how many lions there live on the reserve. Emery, the Nkuhuma pride, the most resident pride. There are 5 lionesses in that pride and 1 young male who's shortly to be chased out. And there's some monkeys just going across there. We'll try and keep up with him now. You're about to go off to an advert break. We'll try and see if we can stay with these monkeys. So stay tuned, and we'll see you when we get back from this. Bye-bye. Oops. Sorry, Brian. I hit the wrong pedal there, sorry. Right, so everybody on the web, we're just going to see if we can find these monkeys, but I'm not sure we will be able to, because they do kind of disappear. They're so nervous of us. Not really sure why they're so nervous of us. No, they've disappeared already here, Brian. Oh, there we go. In the tree there. See him there. See if he stays. Oh, there's another one there. A whole lot of them up here in the marula trees. This is a wonderful monkey sighting. We don't normally get to see monkeys at all. So many of you on the internet, of course, will know the story of the lions, but we like to spread the exciting kind of tales that our lions have to tell. They're out the way there, Brian. Can't see them. Should we try and get back a bit? They really are very, very good at hiding. We are trespassing slightly now. No, I think let's leave them, everybody. Let's go and see if we can carry on. We're still looking for some leopard tracks. Vula was around here. We haven't found his tracks crossing out of the reserve. He was around here yesterday. So I'm not really sure where he is. So we're just going to drive gently down here. Maybe some general game here, some zebra, something like that. Maybe even some more elephants. So we've still got 3 minutes left in our ad break, everyone. Wonderful sound of the cicadas that we can hear. A question from a Avery P. Tickle. Interesting name, that, Avery P. Tickle. Well, Mr. Avery P. Tickle, I think you're a Mr. You may be a Mrs. I'm not sure. Avery P. Tickle, you want to know what my least favorite animal is? Avery P., my least favorite animal is probably the Anopheles mosquito, which of course is the vector of malaria. And we don't like them. Those aren't mosquitoes, of course. Those are impala in screen. But the mosquito, if it was to disappear from the face of the earth, the Anopheles specifically, the malarial carrying one, that was to disappear, I don't believe that I would shed a tear. I'm sure that it has some form of environmental and ecological role to play, but it's certainly not something that I would be very sorry to see go. So my least favorite animal, Avery P. Tickle, the Anopheles mosquito. Good question, that. Thank you. I believe that's the first time we've heard from you, Mr. Tickle. Right. So 2 impala rams, and they're just lurking about on their own at the moment, hoping to not be eaten. It's unusual to find them on their own like that. I find that very strange. So I tell you what, we've got some, looks like some others through here we can try and find. Now those 2 males are heading off into the reserve. Welcome back, everybody. We're still on the same road here, and those are not monkeys, of course. We left the monkeys. Those are impala, our most common antelope. The monkeys went off into a tree and disappeared from view very quickly, very easily, and so we just come straight down the road here. Now, the monkeys, what they do is they like to alarm call. They will shout whenever they see a predator. So whenever we see monkeys, we check what they're saying, where they're looking, because they're really good indicators of where there might be a leopard. Now, Ethan, while we're driving along here, I'm going to keep going just so that we can cover as much ground as possible. You want to know how big this reserve is. Ethan, I'll tell you, it's not a simple answer, really. So we operate on a piece of land that is about 4,000 acres large. Then we're in part of a collection of private reserves called the Sabi Sands. That's 60,000 hectares, or about 160,000 acres. That is then connected to the Greater Kruger National Park, which is in turn connected to the Greater Limpopo National Park, which goes into Mozambique and north into Zimbabwe, and together they make up 8 million acres of contiguous wildlife land. It really is an astonishingly large and very special wilderness that we're privileged to call home. That, can you hear that? Don't stop now, bird. There we go. Look, there he is. That's a woodland kingfisher. And the quintessential sound of the South African summer. Trying to attract mates and setting up a territory. This was probably a male trying to find a tree hole in which to nest. There he goes. Like a little F-16. He's still flying through there. Oh, I've spotted him. Let's just go quickly. Brian is on the dead tree to the left of us there. Brian, by the way, is on camera. I'm not speaking to myself. There he is, Brian. So there, he's just on the top of the tree there, on the dead tree there, Brian. I've got him there. Right, so we've got him there, and while we're just getting picture on him, Brianna, you want to know what's the most common animal that we see here? Brianna, the most common animal is probably the impala in terms of a mammal. That would be the most common one that we see. We've just seen 2 of them now, and I think you've probably seen a few at the waterhole with Peter earlier on. In terms of the most common actual animal that is here, there's no question, it's the termite. Lots and lots and lots of termites, millions of them, all under the ground, doing their special cleanup job that they have to do here. So there's the woodland kingfisher making his wonderful call. And he'll look for a tree like that, which will have natural holes in it, or holes that have been sort of dug out by woodpeckers and other birds called barbets. And they've only just arrived back. They've been in equatorial Africa for most of the winter, in fact all of our winter, and quite a lot of our spring, and then they arrive for the summer. They breed here, and it's always very exciting to hear that chip the first time, and after a month you get quite used to it, and after 2 months you're getting a little bit sick of it, and by the time March comes along you just want them to go away as soon as possible, because it becomes a very strident and endless call out here. It's a beautifully warm summer's afternoon, about 32 degrees Celsius, which sits at about 89 degrees Fahrenheit. And there's the one thing that transfers being attacked by flies is the incredible smells out here. Very subtle smells of dust and the herbs that are in the grass and the fresh grass that comes up and the dung, which of course is much better smelling than you might think it is. Let's head across to Scott. He's got something to show you on the ground, and I'm going to try and get rid of these flies in the meantime. See you just now.
So I thought I would show you an elephant track, and you can see quite clearly a big oval mark here in the sand, and you'll notice kind of almost little networks of roads or lines or veins, you could say, these tiny little kind of markings on the sole of the foot. That's because they've got very cracked feet, elephants. Another thing that you'll notice is that there's this slight depression at the front of the track. I'm going to point it out to you guys now over here. So that's something to look for when trying to determine which direction the elephants were heading in. So there's that little mark there, and you'll probably notice that this back part of the track is smoother and more depressed into the sand than the front part, indicating that the heel pushed down at the back and the toe kicked forward this little indentation over here. So the elephants were moving towards where I'm lying down here because of that little toe mark and a smooth, flat, depressed track at the back. Now this was a very small elephant. A lot of you may be wondering, surely that's not a big elephant, because you would have been able to compare the size of it to my hand. And what I'm going to do is draw around this track the size of a big elephant bull's footprint, and it'll probably be something like this, to give you an idea of how much bigger it is. So that gives you an idea of a proper elephant's footprint. This is a baby, maybe 3 or 4 years old, but it was a good example to show you which direction they were moving in, and it's incredibly important to keep track of your surroundings when walking through the bush. It's not only about seeing animals or hearing animals, but by being able to follow their footprints and be able to read the wilderness and read into tracks and signs in the ground. It'll help you to not only find animals, but also to prevent getting yourself into dangerous situations. Good stuff. We're going to continue through our search, hoping to find you guys some more interesting things. We're going to change our search from big mammals to small insects now though. So let's see what little interesting critters we'll find you in the next short while. Over to Pete.
Well, some interesting things to look at there from a tracking point of view. And as Scott was saying, just as we're turning in here, we're just at the inner den, so we thought we might as well just pop in and have a look, see if there's activity or not. Just as we're driving in, this is actually quite a beautiful area. It's quite green still. There's lots of bush willow around here, which is one of the sort of broadleaf species of trees here. But it has been getting quite hot and dry again. Well, I mean, this morning was cold, but the last few days has been, as in general, getting warmer. So even though it has rained a bit and the bush is getting green, the ground itself is still quite doesn't look like there's too much going on. Let's have a look. This is beautiful. This is the termite mound. You can see there's sort of almost clearing around it. That would be from all the activity from the hyenas, also obviously from us coming in here to have a look. And it seems today they're still sleeping. I did think they might be because it's still quite hot. But I just wanted to come have a look and see what's happening here. This is another part of that's another hole we don't see as often. Another entrance, like a back door if you want, to the kitchen door. Fresh tracks. If you just look in the sand in the foreground here, just this area here. Lots of, there's a nice print. Lots of tracks. So they have been here, they have been using that hole as well. But it seems at the moment probably nicer and cooler for them just to be in the mound. So we'll come back in a bit later on, closer to sunset. I've pretty much got the same idea still as earlier, and that is that I just want to stick around the general sort of Djuma camp, Impala Plains, quarantine, that area. Hoping we can maybe find leopard later on. More specifically, hoping to find Karula. Now, we haven't had any tracks for a number of days, but I'm just getting a feeling that she might pop out here. So we'll come back at the hyena den again later on as well. We're going to be sticking around the general vicinity for the afternoon. Hello, Susie. And asking a question about marula trees. Now, marula trees have become very famous or infamous, depending how you look at it. Through a movie that was made years ago, where it showed elephants getting drunk by eating these marula fruits. Now, Susie, the short answer is no, they don't really get drunk from those marula fruits. You can make alcohol from those fruits, but you have to ferment it the same as you would have to ferment other fruits if you want to use, whether it's apples or grapes or whichever. In nature, these fruits are incredibly popular. Unfortunately, I can't show you the marula tree now because where we're driving, we're on the higher ground. Marulas are in the better sandy areas. Down towards Quarantine, there where Hayden's sitting in the tent. That area's got big marula fruits, or trees. Trees, then the fruits. In this case, I think the tree was first. But those fruits are about golf ball size and very tasty. Even humans love them. You can eat the nuts inside as well. And then, of course, humans make like a marula beer almost. The story from the elephant, for those fruits to ferment long enough, to get strong enough to have any kind of effect on the elephant, it would have to be lying in the sun for a long time. And they're just so popular. Those fruits, when they're on the ground, everything eats them. Whether it's elephant, kudu, warthog, baboons, monkeys, squirrels, everything eats those fruits because they're so delicious. And in fact, we love them here as well. On game drive during that time, it's about February, end of February, they will start getting or ripening. And then we'll show you. They go like a sort of a pale yellow color when they're ripe. Very sweet, very, very high in vitamin C. And that is the marula tree. They make a very famous cream liqueur out of it, amarula, which is, after wine, actually, funny enough, the biggest drinks export from South Africa. That's just a little side note there for you. So yeah, that's pretty much our plan. Let's look around. Hey, this is a question from Drew all the way from Washington DC, although he's sitting at the moment not far from here. We're going to get him out and drive sometime this week as well, just to come and sort of sit in the back there with BM. But Drew, nice to have a question from you. So this is what I tend to do when I have people on the vehicle that I like to introduce. I want to go on about them. I'm not going to, don't worry, Drew, but super nice guy. He's been fantastic. Having him here from Nat Geo, helping and seeing and having fun with us. This is very typical. I apologize. I do this sometimes. I start talking about the person and I forget about what the question was. How many cubs are in that den? Drew, we don't actually know that. Wow, you actually know it for a fact, I guess. There's one little one. There's some impala. One tiny little one. And then there's one that's sort of a little bit bigger, about 5-6 months. And there's a third one that's probably about a year. Not from the same female, most likely from 3 different females. And sorry, I've got lots of game drive talk going on in my ear there about game drives, so I missed that. Yes. Sorry, that got all mixed up there. 3 of them, 3 different mothers, one that lives in the den. The other 2 are big enough to walk around already as well. Brilliant. Well guys, let me I'm going to just show you quickly. We're very close to where Hayden's sitting and he's actually found a marula nut, so he can actually show you what that looks like. But before he shows you the marula nut, I'm going to show you where HD is sitting. There he is. That's the tent. Enjoy it with HD. He's going to tell you a bit more about marulas.
Fantastic afternoon out there. Just wanted to come back to a couple of traditional uses of plants here to show you, and it's something that really is, you find is so much to trees and so much to plants that if you just look at them, great, they're there, they fit into the ecosystem, they play a very special role for animals, but humans have been using traditional plants for a very long time. Dental hygiene is a very, very interesting thing, and there's loads of different plants that can be used through dental hygiene. Now this, for example, this is a black monkey thorn. I want to just hold it up to the camera there for you, Tebs. Okay, you can see those very, very strong hooks. We often get caught as we're driving through the bush on these things, and you really know about it. They'll open you up. What you can do is just cut above the thorn here, and I'll get you in nice and tight there. Cut above the thorn, just like that. You've got these 2 very, very sharp spikes. You can just take the ends off those so you don't end up opening your lip up or your tongue. Okay, and then you can use that as a bit of a dental pick and get in there and clean your teeth and do all that and have a really good time now, because they're really good actually. And they are very, very useful. After you've done that, you can get yourself a piece of guarri bush here, and that's what the guarri bush looks like. Really, really high in tannins, so animals don't really, there's not many animals that will use that. But what we can do is make a little toothbrush out of this. Now, what you would do is get your knife, and you would then just cut the end of it, just start to cross hatch down through here, and then go the other way. And I've just done it on the other end here for you, so you can see it's all splayed apart there, and it's nice, and you can sort of chew that and get that into a nice sort of toothbrush type of a thing. But then what you would do also is burn this here. This is leadwood bark, very, very sort of granulated, or it's got a lot of grains in it. It's quite it's something that you could use with a bit of saliva or a bit of water in there, and use it as a bit of a toothpaste. And then inside here you can brush your teeth, which is really good. And you can just do that. And you do often find Shangaan, and when I've been on the other side of the continent with the Bushmen, the San Bushmen, they'll just do this as they're standing there talking to each other, and they'll do that with their teeth. And it really does work. It's a fantastic little thing. And you can chew it up a little bit and make it a bit flatter, and then brush your teeth. So you can use the ash of the leadwood bark, you can use the hook of the black monkey thorn, and you can end up having fantastic, fantastic teeth in the bush. Let's cross back over to Peter and see what he's up to.
Right, everybody, we have got 2 buffalo bulls, and I'm sure you've been told about them by Peter. I know you've seen them earlier today. These are not the same ones. They are sort of cuddling in the last of the mud here. And they say buffalo look at you as though you owe them money. Well, that was precisely what I felt like when that chap looked at me. I nearly took out my checkbook and handed it to him. I don't actually have a checkbook, everybody. I'm not that old. Okay, while those buffalo masticate their food there, they're chewing the cud. That's what they do. We're going to do a little grazing test. Brian is going to help me because he's very helpful in that way. This particularly beautiful grass here is called a Natal redtop, and you can see it shining in the starting to set sun. It's very beautiful, but it's also an indicator of very poor soil or disturbed sites. So Brian, you stick that in your beak, see what it tastes like, and you give me a report back. I'm going to do the same thing with mine. Like mushrooms, really. It's not a very good taste at all. Now, what's interesting is that this one here, which we'll show you, very beautiful, also sort of reddish and green. This is called Setaria fasciculata, or the bottle brush, and this is supposed to taste much better. So have a taste of that, everyone. See what you think of. What do you think, Brian? Infinitely sweeter. So we get a lot of mine, of course, tastes slightly of fish because I was holding that tilapia, so that's really disgusting. But lots of different kinds of grasses around here, and it is really very important that we understand what kinds of grasses grow here so that we can decide what animals should be here and what animals shouldn't be here. And there are, Norma, you, just following on from that theme, Norma, you want to know, are there open areas where the animals can graze? Norma, there are some, but they're not many. And I mean, this landscape is known as a broadleafed woodland, and there is grass around the place. There is some grass in and around the wood and the trees, but it's not like the Serengeti. So often people think, Norma, of Africa as being the Serengeti, these vast grass plains. The Kruger area isn't really like that. There are some areas that are quite similar, but not many. It looks much thicker than it does than it is from where you're sitting now and looking over these green trees. When you look at it from the air, you can see the open areas, and there's certainly plenty of grass and plenty of grazing animals around here. Big herds of buffalo. I mean, this isn't a big herd of buffalo. That's a pair of fairly angry old bulls that are sitting over there. And then the impala or grazers, we've got lots and lots of different kinds of grazers. Jeff, you want to know what the rarest kind of animal on this reserve is. Jeff, we get some sort of vagrant birds. That's definitely not a rare one. That's an impala. Some vagrant birds that come in and out of here you'd find we consider definitely very rare. The most rare mammal that we get on the reserve is probably the wild dog. That's the most iconic one. Only 2,500 left in the whole world. They're like Africa's wolf. They look like painted wolves with great big satellite dishes on the front of their heads. They are very, very beautiful, and certainly my favorite, possibly the rarest that we get here. You hear those birds calling? And quack! It's called a grey go-away bird. You might also be able to hear the spider hunting wasps hunting spiders in the tree over there. Right, well, while those spider hunting wasps hunt their spiders there, we're going to head across to an advert break. We're going to stay with these buffalo, and we'll see you just after this. Right, for those of you on... So for those of you on the internet, not watching the television, I'm sure one day they're going to be exactly the same thing. There's a beautiful array, or not array, there's a, lost me words there, it's a weaver. It looks like a village weaver, beautiful yellow weaver hopping about there in the tree. And they're building their little nests above what is supposed to be water, but isn't at the moment. And there are also a whole lot of insects. There's some spider hunting wasps, there are a whole lot of moths, there are a couple of butterflies, and that's because that tree there is flowering. It's very late for it to be flowering, and it's I think Hayden was talking about it earlier, it's a black monkey thorn, Acacia burkii, and it seems to be flowering very late.
Welcome back, guys. So we're just chatting about big river systems. And what track is that? Hey, it's a hyena track. Let me try and show you actually. I mean, you're looking at a lot of tracks on the walk, elephant tracks earlier, but there's a nice example of, let's look at that one. It's a hyena front and back foot. Little pad in the back and the 4 toes there. That specific one there, you can just see a nail mark. That's a good example of the nail mark. Now, if this was a cat track, which I thought at sort of first glance, I was hoping maybe leopard, you wouldn't see any of those nail marks. And also the pad at the back is a very nice sort of 3-lobe pad. Sorry, VM and myself. VM is the guy behind the camera. And just talking about river systems, how beautiful it is, the big river systems of Kruger and some of the other rivers in South Africa or Southern Africa. We are on our way to Impala Plains. Then we will have a look around Impala Plains. There's some rhino tracks. Walked through here last night probably. So yeah, we're going to go to Impala Plains. And we are waiting for the vehicle to fill up again. We're in ad break. No, we're not in ad break. We're in Africa. Some of the other people are on ad break, but they will come back to the game drive shortly. So it's actually incorrect when I say we're in ad break, because we are not. Some of our friends on the vehicle are in ad break. So we're going to look at another track just now, just to point that out to them. In case I do later on find a leopard track, we can show you the difference. All right, guys, we'll see you back here in a bit. You're going to go to the bushwalk, and then everyone will join you there. See you in a bit.
Hello everyone, and there's a very cool moth that you're busy looking at called the dice moth, and I'm hoping it doesn't go anywhere while our TV audience is having a little break, because if it does, then I'm going to be scrambling to try and find something else to show them when they come back. But they'll be joining us shortly in the next minute or so, and when they join, I'll tell you a little bit more about these interesting little moths. Awesome stuff. Well, it's just 30 seconds until the TV crew join us. Not even. So I'm going to get ready for action. Wish me luck. Well, it's a little bit windy, but I'm sure you can see this very pretty moth that's hanging upside down onto this leaf that's blowing wildly in the wind. I'm going to try and hold the leaf steady in the hope, okay, good, the moth didn't fly away. Now this is a very applicable moth for this time of the year because its caterpillars are out, and I'm hoping I'm going to be able to find you one of the caterpillars. They're brightly colored, red, white, black, and have got these crazy long hairs growing out of them. This is the adult form though of the little insect, so it's metamorphosized into this moth, but I'm hoping, like I say, we'll be able to show you them in caterpillar form. It's called a dice moth. I'm not sure if you can see those 3 little spots on its one wing, and on the other side it has identical 3 spots similar to that of a dice, hence the name. And it's a really cool little moth that we saw fluttering about. Good. Now I must admit that earlier on I said we're going to be looking for critters, and we certainly are, but we haven't lost focus, and I've got a feeling that there's going to be a female leopard lurking around this area, and hopefully it won't take us too long to maybe hear some alarm calls from squirrels or monkeys, maybe even impala that she may be hunting, and that will lead us closer to her. But she was last seen in this area a few days ago, and we've all got this kind of gut feeling that she could still be lurking. So don't worry, we're not just looking for bugs, but while the leopard is hiding, the bugs are going to keep us entertained. Oh, maybe let's go out this way. Hello, Geraldine. And we have been on the topic of bugs, and Geraldine would like to know, what insect repellents do we use, especially for mosquitoes out here? And Geraldine, I personally don't actually use any here because we are not in a high-risk malaria area. But if I was to be in those areas, which I have spent many years of my life in areas where you can get malaria from the mosquitoes, I tend to use Peaceful Sleep is my brand of mosquito repellent, but there's many that do the job quite well. A pair of hornbills just landed up in the tree here. Let's see if we can't get you a view. It's going to be tricky because of the sunlight, but Jandre is such a good cameraman, I'm going to drop him in the deep end. It's just above me here. And it's a very hot afternoon. That's why the beak of this hornbill is open, and you can probably even see it panting. Oh, off it goes, or you may have seen it panting. Well done, Jandre. And just like cats and dogs, birds will also pant with their beaks wide open in the hot weather. And we're going to rush you across to James for one of the bigger characters here on Djuma.
Well, everybody, there is Pumbaa and his family. A lovely little sounder of warthogs. We get 2 pigs out here. The other one I've never seen here. The other one's called a bush pig, and those are warthogs, made obviously iconically famous by Pumbaa in The Lion King. And we call this little group a sounder. I don't know why that's what pigs are called, but that's what a group of pigs is called. And what you'll probably find here is that there are a few females, maybe 2, and they're young, and there might be 1 or 2 boars around, big ones, but if they're properly adult boars, it's unlikely they're going to hang around too long with the family. They do tend to move around a bit. Now, we're quite far away from them, and we'll try and get a little bit closer just now. We have a wonderful, wonderful question coming through here from Olive. Olive, you're just 5 years old, and we love to hear from our younger viewers especially. They're the next champions of the wilderness, of course, and we so need young and inspired people to help us conserve our last wild places. And Olive, your question is, do the animals get mad with us when we eat their grass? Olive, we didn't eat much grass, so I think they're probably okay with the amount that Brian and I ate. But if we started eating too much, I think probably they would. Those warthogs do like a lot of grass to eat, and so if we were to crawl in there and start sharing it with them on the ground, I think they'd be very upset, Olive. Thank you for your question. Now remember, everybody, if you're wondering how on earth Olive, aged 5, managed to ask us a question, she's hashtagged Safari Live on Twitter. I suspect a parent's done that for her, but these days, who knows? She can probably do it herself. So ask us questions on Twitter. Hashtag Safari Live is the handle you should use. Isn't that beautiful, the way they lit in the now setting African sun? It's just so beautiful. And what they're eating is, you can see some of them are on their knees. They're not in some kind of religious pose. They are, in fact, pulling different roots out. They like to dig with their snouts. They've got a hard piece of cartilage in the nose that they use to dig, and they dig out little roots and tubers and bulbs and things like that, and are very nutritious and full of carbohydrates. And these little warthogs are some of the most vulnerable during a drought. And so they'll be watching that western horizon that we can see now, where the clouds are starting to build over the magnificent Drakensberg mountains. They'll be watching those clouds with great interest, trying to see whether the rains might start soon. I think those clouds are a bit like our politicians. They are tempting us, but I don't think they're going to give us any rain today. Now, Jordan, you want to know how far these pigs or warthogs will roam from their dens. Jordan, quite far during the course of a day, but they'll have a number of sort of a few termite mounds, and those are those great castles of clay that the termites build. They get opened up by aardvarks, ant bears, and sometimes honey badgers, and then the pigs will modify the holes, and they'll use them for their burrows, and they'll have a few of them within their little home range. They're not territorial, but they'll know of safe spots wherever they are. If you were to frighten them, or if a predator was to come along, they'd head straight for a refuge. They would possibly be too far away, so if a lion was to come along here and chase one of those little ones, it would be doubtful that they'd be able to get to a hole in time before they were caught. And Tommy, lovely to hear from you. Thank you for your question. You want to know how many types of warthog there are in Africa. Tommy, only one type of warthog, and that's this one. We do get two kinds of pigs, or members of the family Suidae. Those are that's the pig family. There's something called a bush pig, which is much larger than these. And then further up north in Africa, we get something called a giant forest hog, which is like a European wild boar. It's about the same sort of size. These ones are a bit smaller than that, but still, an adult male can weigh up to 100 kilograms. That's enormous. It's 220 pounds, and it's the same mass as an elephant when it's born. They don't look that big from here, but that's certainly how big they can get. And just to reiterate to you, I mean, we're sitting here watching a sounder of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 warthogs. You've watched elephants with Scott on foot and with me on foot, at least in the vehicle, and we could get pretty close to the elephants. These warthogs tend to be a lot more nervous of us than so many of the other animals out here. And while we can sit with lions and leopards for ages at a time without them moving, once we found them, of course, these warthogs tend to be a lot more nervous, and that's why I've stopped a bit further away. I've lowered my voice a bit. We're probably about 40 meters, so about 140 feet from them. And they're just happily grazing along. And the more time we spend with them like this, the less likely they would be to run away from us. Now, Ethan, you